7 months ago, my husband accused me of cheating. Zero chance to explain. Zero questions asked. He gave me an ultimatum, a gut-wrenching choice. Get an abortion, or get out of my life. I refuse to kill my own child. So he straight up threw his pregnant wife out into the pouring Seattle rain. Can you imagine? Today, on a live stream watched by 50,000 people, he was about to sign a $350 million deal celebrating integrity, but then, a hidden sonogram photo labeled "Our Little Girl" tumbled right out of his secret briefcase compartment. The notification on his phone, piped through the sound system, flashed. Stroller from dad still not purchased. His mic was still hot. He choked back tears right there on stage. Turns out, he whispered, the other man was me all along, but the thing that actually broke him that day was a secret I'd been holding onto for 6 whole months, and the conditional forgiveness I gave him later, trust me, it was way more devastating than his public breakdown. Before we dive into Ethan's brutal collapse and public path to redemption, hit the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. I want to know where this story hits hardest for you. And if you are new here, smash that subscribe button now. Don't miss a single one of these raw, true, and mind-blowing stories we have lined up. To understand how Ethan Cole truly imploded, we need to rewind. Ethan always believed his intellect and calculation were supreme. He was a powerful VP of marketing in Seattle. He built an empire on smart moves. He prided himself on making final, emotionless decisions. 6 years ago, he met Lena at a fancy partner party. He was instantly hooked on her quiet resilience, her genuine warmth. Lena was a grade school teacher. She had this special talent for making everyone around her feel heard. They dated 2 years, got married in a small ceremony with only close friends and family, the first for years. Flawless. We had this beautiful suburban house, annual trips to exotic resorts. We planned everything. But then, Ethan changed. His career demanded more hours, constant cross-state travel. He started spending less time at our perfect home. It was all high-end dinners and strategic golf games with VIP clients. Lena saw the shift. She stayed patient. She truly believed it was just a phase, the necessary price for him to hit the top. I tried to believe that too. The real crack started when Lena, turning 32, wanted kids. She felt it was time for a family. Ethan? He kept pushing it back. Excuses came nonstop. Finish the big deal. Hit the $1 million mark. Wait for the market to stabilize. The brutal truth, Ethan was too comfortable. He loved his perfect, commitment-free life. Impulse plane tickets, weekend golf, decisions made with zero compromise. A kid would blow that up. He was not ready for that kind of mess. Lena tried to be understanding, but months turned into a year. Her patience was drained. They kept having the exact same fight. Every time, it ended in deadlock and deep hurt. Ethan accused her of trying to trap him. Lena just reminded him of his promise before they even got the rings. The emotional gap widened with every passing month. And then, the moment Lena had waited for finally happened. 3 pregnancy tests, 2 clear lines, 6 weeks along. She was ecstatic. 7 months after that rainy night, the night he kicked his pregnant wife out, Ethan kept telling himself it was necessary. He couldn't become his own father, the betrayed man. He lived believing Lena had gone through with the termination. Until one foggy morning, his luxury sedan stopped at a busy intersection in downtown Seattle. That entire solid world of Ethan's, it cracked in 1 second, because there, crossing the street right in front of his windshield, was Lena, the same quiet dignity he used to worship, except now, her bump was undeniable. The kind of pregnant you can't possibly hide. The semi-truck next to him roared its engine, and in that roaring sound, Ethan understood the chilling truth that would haunt him forever. She had never done what he asked. The baby girl she was carrying? His blood. He had abandoned his own child and the woman he loved, all because of a single insane assumption he never once bothered to check. But the first thought that hit Ethan? Not joy, not even excitement, just pure, sheer panic. This wasn't in his detailed master plan at all. He had a $1 billion project launching in 3 months, constant cross-time zone travel. He just committed to the powerful Armstrong family fund. That deal would drain every single minute of his time. A kid had zero place in any of that. He looked at Lena, and even from across the street, the pure, unadulterated hope in her eyes was unmistakable. But Ethan just locked down his emotions. He told me we needed to look at this metaphysically. We weren't ready, financially, mentally. His career was at a critical juncture, and honestly, we weren't even getting along lately. How could we bring a whole person into this mess? He pushed for the optimal solution. His coldness shattered me. Lena insisted she was keeping the baby. Ethan felt trapped, backed into a corner. In his twisted, paranoid mind, her resolve felt selfish, irrational. The seed of doubt, the one planted when his mom abandoned him at 7, started to grow fast. Can you imagine? Then came a late January evening. Ethan came home early, feeling awesome. He just aced the presentation for the $350 million deal with the Armstrong Fund, a group famous for only backing leaders with a perfect family history. He was about to brag to Lena, but the house was quiet. While he waited, he saw my phone charging on the kitchen counter. A text popped up from AR, just left the clinic. Baby's heartbeat is strong. Thanks for holding my hand through last week's panic. That old wound, the betrayal by his mother just exploded. The neighbor's whispers, his broken dad, it all flooded back. He grabbed his phone and called Jaden, his voice shaking. Dude, history is repeating itself. I can't do this. Lena walked in. Her face was glowing. She was holding the sonogram album. Ethan, I have good news. He cut her off, slammed my phone onto the counter. Who is AR? Is this baby even mine? Lena's face crumbled. You don't understand. AR is Dr. Alex Rivera, my old classmate. He's my OB now. I had a slight complication today, and he checked the baby. Stop. Don't give me that bullshit excuse, Ethan sneered. My mother started exactly like this. One day, she just walked out and never came back. I won't let you turn me into a fool like my father. I watched Lena's face totally break. She expected fear, maybe hesitation, not this calculated, cold-blooded cruelty. She told him this wasn't about logistics or timing. This was a life, our life. She said she was keeping the baby, period. For the next 2 weeks, the atmosphere was suffocating. Every conversation was a vicious, exhausting battle. Ethan kept pushing his optimal solution. Terminate the pregnancy. Fix the marriage first, then try again when everything was ready. He framed it as the mature, responsible choice, but Lena was adamant. She understood his fear, but she said she would never end this pregnancy just because it didn't fit his timeline. Ethan's resentment built. He truly felt she was making a unilateral, selfish decision. Her resolve just made him angrier. It only solidified his paranoid belief that something was wrong. One night, after a screaming match that left us both completely drained, Ethan said the words he could never, ever take back. He told Lena if she refused the abortion, he wanted a divorce. He couldn't be a father right now. He wouldn't be forced into a life he didn't want. Lena stared at him. Absolute shock. She knew he was scared, but she never imagined he would actually throw 6 years of marriage away for this. He was too arrogant and too furious to back down. He gave her the final choice: end the pregnancy and save the marriage, or keep it, and he walks out right now. He honestly thought the ultimatum would force her to face reality, but Lena just gave a small nod, tears streaming down her face. She said she would never kill our baby just to keep him. If that was the price, he was free to leave. 2 days of deafening, suffocating silence followed. It felt like waiting for the executioner. Then, that night in the classic, pouring Seattle rain, Ethan drove back from the 5-star hotel he'd been hiding in. Back to the suburban house where we planned our future. He walked in, didn't even glance at Lena, went straight to the closet. He stuffed my clothes, my personal things, into a huge suitcase. Coldly, without emotion, when he was done, he dragged the heavy bag to the front door and dumped it outside, right where the rain could hit it. Get out. His voice was deep, alien. Not my husband anymore. Right now. Lena, eyes red and belly barely showing, stumbled out into the cold night. The next morning, when my sister Morgan picked me up, I was running a fever in a cheap motel bed. My lips were cracked and pale. I was alone. The next few months were a masterclass in single mom resilience. Picture this. Sitting on a sea of IKEA wood, sweating, trying to build a crib. I'd go live for 80,000 followers. Single mothers, listen up. We aren't just surviving, we're building our own foundation. We make our own rules now. But the second I hit end stream, I'd collapse, sobbing, clutching my belly. One Saturday at Target, I was pushing a cart full of baby gear. I saw a young couple happily arguing over the color of a onesie. I quickly turned my cart away, covering my bump, instinctively shielding my child from my own heartache. When I returned to the old house for the very last time to grab my remaining things, my eyes landed on the Tom Ford leather briefcase Ethan always took to meetings. It had that tiny secret compartment at the bottom. He'd never opened. He always said he was saving it for important papers later, back in the good times. He joked he'd hide the best surprise ever in there. Now, with a painful, tight ache in my chest, I decided to turn that spot into my final message. Tears blurred my vision. As a final whisper of hope, I took the 12-week sonogram photo. On the back, I wrote, "Our little girl 12 weeks." I carefully tucked it into that secret pocket he'd never bothered to open. A silent farewell, placed exactly where he'd promised to keep the best surprise. Meanwhile, Ethan's world was a complete delusion. He rented a furnished high-rise downtown. He buried himself in work, absolutely convinced he'd made the logical, right decision. He told everyone they had irreconcilable differences. He never mentioned the pregnancy. In Ethan's reality, the problem would solve itself once Lena faced the brutal reality of single motherhood. He genuinely assumed I'd come to my senses, terminate the pregnancy, and come crawling back to fix the marriage. 1 month, then 2. 0 calls, 0 texts. Late in the 4th month, cleaning out his car for a client pickup, he found an old prenatal receipt wedged in the seat. The text jumped out. Gestation, 32 weeks. Patient, Lena Cole. His heart pounded. A flicker of terrifying doubt. What if she actually kept it? But the fear and the overwhelming arrogance instantly crushed it. Must be an old receipt from an employee. Or maybe she left it there to threaten me, he rationalized. He crumpled the paper, tossing it into the trash with a scoff. Did she really think she could scare him? He didn't know, but that was the final, devastating warning he ignored. He told himself I was being stubborn, waiting for him to break first. He kept himself busy traveling, hitting events, loving the compliments from friends that he looked freer than ever. As time dragged on, Ethan was certain I had gone through with determination. My silence to him meant I had finally made the reasonable choice. His lawyer filed the divorce papers. I signed without a fight. Then came the cold, sterile divorce court. The moment of truth, the judge asked the final binding question. Miss Cole, are you absolutely certain you waive all rights to alimony and financial support from the defendant? I looked up. My voice was calm, unshakable. Yes, Your Honor. I don't want a single dime from a man who didn't want us. Harper and I will be just fine. Ethan was sitting at the defendant's table. I saw his heart literally stop. That wasn't bitterness. That was pure, powerful pride and rock-solid resolve that blindsided him. I asked for nothing but my personal effects and half the savings. The whole thing was clean, civil, and that civility was the loudest possible condemnation. By mid-April, we were officially strangers on paper. Ethan felt this bizarre mix of relief and emptiness. He had what he wanted. He was free, unburdened, But something felt profoundly off. He found himself thinking about me, wondering how I was doing, but he never reached out. His pride and stubbornness were a brick wall. 6 months later, Ethan was standing on the absolute peak of his career, ready to sign the $350 million deal in a live-streamed ceremony. The gigantic backdrop read, "Building trust, building family, building the future." Ethan smiled, looking directly into the camera. He felt invincible. He even flashed back to his meeting with the Armstrong Fund in Dallas 6 weeks prior. He could hear his own confident voice. "The divorce is finalized, clean. No kids, no liability, no reputation risk. You can invest with confidence in a free man." Back on the podium, Ethan's voice was full of passion. "Today, we aren't just signing a contract. We're building a legacy of integrity for the next generation." He opened his Tom Ford briefcase to grab his Mont Blanc pen, and that's when it happened. The old sonogram photo, with the little handwritten note, slid out. It skidded across the floor and stopped right at the polished leather shoes of Mrs. Eleanor Armstrong. The livestream camera instantly zoomed in. The auditorium went dead silent. Mrs. Armstrong slowly bent down, picked up the photo, and looked at the date. Then she looked up at Ethan. Her eyes snapped from sheer disbelief to ice-cold fury. They pierced right through him. The whispers started. Shareholders stared at each other in astonishment. Dozens of cameras swung toward him. At the same time, Ethan's phone buzzed. An Amazon notification appeared. Reminder: one gift still not purchased from Lena Cole's baby registry father. Ethan Cole. The system still had him tagged as Dad. Ethan frantically opened the link now being shared everywhere. The registry appeared. Harper Grace Cole, baby girl, expected August 2023. Parents: Lena Cole and Ethan Cole. Over 87 items had been bought. Only a stroller remained with the note, "Still needed from Dad." Lena's description read, "Thank you all for accompanying my daughter and me on this journey." A young employee shot a 9-second clip and posted it instantly to TikTok. The wave of reaction began. Mrs. Eleanor Armstrong stood up, her voice gentle but ice-cold. "Mr. Cole, 6 weeks ago you sat in my office and sold me a perfect family man. Today, you sold it to tens of thousands of people, and it turns out you couldn't even buy a gift for your own daughter. The Armstrong Fund is withdrawing right now." She placed the contract down and left with her entire entourage. The $350 million deal died live on air. Ethan stood paralyzed. The mic was still on, capturing his choked whisper. She was telling the truth. "My God, that's my daughter." He burst into uncontrollable sobs. I told her, I won't raise another man's kid." He looked up, his face drenched in tears. "It turns out, the other man was me." The silence was broken by an uproar. Livestream comments exploded. "That line hurts more than losing $350 million. Ethan Cole post he just dug his own grave." Just a few hours later, the clip went viral rapidly, hitting 500,000 views. The hashtag Ethan Cole exposed exploded, climbing to top trending globally. Comments poured in. Amazon still tags this guy as Dad, making him the focus of social media fury. He pressed the sonogram photo to his chest, hot tears falling onto the image of the daughter he had rejected. The moment he collapsed in front of the whole world, clutching the picture to his heart, closed the event with bitterness. Finally, he had opened that briefcase in the most tragic way possible. Ethan sat motionless in his car, missing an important meeting. He stared at his phone screen, where his career and reputation were burning, but the only thing he clearly saw was the small face in the sonogram photo. Lena's number was still there. He wanted to call, wanted to scream an apology, wanted to ask about her and the baby's health, but he didn't have the courage to press the call button. How could he apologize for such a monumental mistake? The whole next week, Ethan completely lost the ability to concentrate. Night after night, he searched for the name Alex Rivera, the professional profile of a famous obstetrician appeared with full credentials and awards. In that moment, he suddenly realized what Lena had tried to explain and how cruelly he had denied it. His own fear had distorted the truth. Unable to bear it any longer, he called Morgan. Her voice was icy. "Ethan, I thought you were busy signing $100 million contracts to build your legacy of integrity?" "Morgan, please." "Lena, the baby. Is she okay?" Ethan's voice trembled. "She's fine. Absolutely no thanks to you." Morgan's voice was full of sarcasm. "While you were selling a lie to the world, she built everything for her daughter herself. And don't worry, she never revealed the truth about you abandoning her. She only said they grew in different directions. Even when you made a fool of yourself all over the news, she didn't say another word to tear you down." Morgan lowered her voice. "And you know what? In the 20th week, she almost miscarried. Had to stay in the hospital for 3 days. The person who signed the bond and waited all night was Alex. She called you 7 times then, and you turned your phone off." That conversation hit Ethan like a final punch. After the call, Ethan sat stunned. In silence, he realized he hadn't run away from the marriage, but from himself. Fear had turned him into the most cruel person, a copy of the father he once detested. But now, shame and the feeling of unworthiness imprisoned him. He didn't have the courage to face Lena. He constantly missed work deadlines, canceled partner meetings without explanation. His friends, who always saw him as composed, began to notice his strange distraction, but he refused to open up. He spent hours driving aimlessly near their old neighborhood, but shame and the feeling of unworthiness kept him captive in the car, preventing his hand from daring to knock on the door he once owned. Morgan replied in an icy tone. She said Lena was fine, and that was thanks to nothing he had done. She said Lena had faced the pregnancy herself with rare resilience and dignity, working until the final days before her maternity leave. Morgan made it clear that Ethan had lost every right to be involved in their lives from the moment he chose to walk away. But she also told him one thing that made his heart clench. Lena had never told anyone, not even her own family, that Ethan had abandoned her because she kept the baby. She simply said they had grown in different directions and wanted different things. She had protected his company's reputation, even after everything he had put her through. That conversation completely changed Ethan's perception. He realized that Lena's silence was not the result of pride or stubbornness, but profound forgiveness. She had let him go because she understood he didn't truly want to be there. She didn't try to force him or use the baby to manipulate him with guilt. She simply accepted his choice and moved forward strongly. And somehow, that made what he had done 1,000 times worse. A decent man would have reached out months ago just to check in. A moral man would have checked to ensure she was okay, even if he didn't want to be involved with the baby. A proper man couldn't assume she had gotten an abortion simply because it was convenient for his career. Ethan had failed on every front. As a husband, a partner, a human being, he had allowed his fear and selfishness to brazenly dictate his actions. And now, his daughter would be born into a shattered circumstance entirely because of his choice. A few weeks later, in the persistent Seattle rain, Lena went into labor. Morgan, who had been by her side these past months, rushed her sister to the hospital. The pain grew more intense, but the loneliness in Lena's heart ached even more intensely. She tightly gripped her sister's hand, trying to hold back tears of self-pity. "Do we need to call him?" Morgan asked, her voice full of hesitation. Lena shook her head, her pale face resting against the pillow. "No, he doesn't want the baby. Don't bother him." But watching her sister struggle, Morgan couldn't bear it. She secretly went out to the hallway and dialed Ethan's number. Once, then twice. All fell silent. Finally, she sent a text message, her tone full of fury. "She's in labor. You truly are useless." Meanwhile, Ethan was slumped over his table in his dark apartment, next to empty liquor bottles. He was completely unaware that his angel was about to be born. At the hospital, Lena's situation became tense. She was losing strength quickly. A nurse handed Morgan a consent form. "We need a family member to sign in case of complications requiring urgent intervention. Where is the baby's father?" Morgan bit her lip, took the pen, and signed on her sister's behalf, her heart aching at Ethan's cruel absence. After many hours of struggle, the birth cry of Harper Grace rang out, breaking the heavy atmosphere. Lena held her daughter close, exhausted but happy, while Morgan sighed in relief, secretly wiping away a tear. Their daughter, Harper Grace, was born on a rainy Tuesday morning in early August. In that moment, Ethan was still submerged in intoxication and regret. Waking up the next morning, Ethan saw a series of missed calls from Morgan. A bad feeling prompted him to quickly call back. "Morgan? What's wrong?" Ethan's voice was filled with panic. On the other end, Morgan's voice was icy. "Wrong number." "Nothing's wrong." Then she hung up. The resolute rejection only fueled his suspicion. She couldn't have called the wrong number that many times. He called back, but this time the phone was set to reject calls. Ethan's heart clenched. Something was definitely wrong. Lena might have given birth. He rushed to the hospital, frantically searching through the maternity ward hallways. When he urgently asked about Miss Lena Cole, a middle-aged doctor turned around, his eyes sharp. "Who are you?" "I am her husband. I am the baby's father." Ethan was almost breathless. The doctor looked him up and down, his voice full of sarcasm. "Oh, so you're the father. She gave birth yesterday morning. She went through a difficult labor alone, almost risking danger. If you were truly her husband, her father, you should have been here 24 hours ago, not running in now like a madman." Ethan stood still, lowering his head, enduring the lashing words. He didn't dare offer a single defense. Stepping into the room, Morgan greeted him with an angry look. "Did the gentleman finally deign to show interest? Last night, while your sister struggled between life and death, where were you drinking? When the doctor gave the emergency consent form to sign, the person who signed was me. Me. And where were you, the great father?" Ethan bowed his head, tears streaming down. He silently walked to the bedside, looking at Lena holding their child, her face pale with exhaustion. He didn't dare demand anything, just quietly stayed at the hospital in the following days. He helped with small tasks, stood guard in the hallway, buying warm bowls of congee for Lena. That silent and remorseful presence gradually eased the tense atmosphere throughout those few days. Morgan consistently stood like a fortress wall between Ethan and the baby. Every time he lingered nearby, her gaze seemed to burn right through him. But then, witnessing him quietly tidying up, buying warm congee, and especially the painful, longing look in his eyes to see his child that he didn't dare express, Morgan's firmness slowly began to crack. Then, on a quiet afternoon, when Lena had dozed off, Morgan stepped in front of Ethan, her voice lowered, still cold but no longer sharp. "She's asleep. If you want." Here, she picked up the tiny infant and gently placed her into Ethan's trembling arms. "Easy now. Don't startle her." Ethan received the fragile life. All sounds of the hospital seemed to fade away. His heart felt like it had stopped. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of such a primal, immense love. He leaned down, inhaling the sweet scent of colostrum lingering on his daughter's fine hair. His shaky fingers first touched her delicate, warm skin. He gently stroked her tiny, clutching hand and her chubby toes. A powerful, raw emotion he had never known welled up, erasing all calculations and fears. In that moment, he knew this was his own flesh and blood, the truth he had almost thrown away. His tears fell silently, not from regret, but from a sacred tremor of fatherhood. He leaned down and whispered an apology to his tiny daughter, though he knew she couldn't understand. He apologized for not wanting her, for his absence, for being a terrible father even before she was born. He swore he would spend the rest of his life trying to become the father she deserved. Lena watched Ethan hold their daughter, and for the first time, the hardness in her eyes slowly melted away, giving way to a new tenderness. She told him she had spent the past months being angry, and that anger had helped her through the hardest days. But now, holding Harper Grace and witnessing Ethan meet his daughter for the first time, she realized anger was not what she wanted Harper to grow up with. She told Ethan that she would never forget what he did, but for Harper Grace's sake, she was willing to let him try to make amends. She said Harper deserved a father who loved her and was present in her life. If Ethan was truly committed to being that person, Lena wouldn't stand in his way. But she also made it clear that trust had to be rebuilt little by little and that she would watch to see if his actions matched his words. Ethan thanked her, his voice choked with emotion. He said he understood he had a long road ahead, but he was willing to walk it for as long as necessary. He said he knew he could never erase the past, but he hoped one day Harper would know him as a reliable man, a man who always showed up, a man who loved her unconditionally, and he proved it with action. In the following months, Ethan kept his word. He was consistently present, coming to Lena's apartment 3 times a week to spend time with Harper, helping to feed her, change diapers, and learning how to soothe her when she cried. He proactively paid significantly more in support than the court required, attended intensive fatherhood classes, and read books on child psychology. He reorganized his entire work schedule, cutting down on non-essential business trips. His friends noticed a clear change. He stopped the after-work drinking, no longer boasted about deals or commissions. Instead, he talked about Harper constantly, showing off pictures of his daughter to anyone willing to listen. His priorities had shifted 180 degrees. He rearranged his entire work schedule, cutting back on travel unless it was a direct meeting related to the remaining $350 million crisis. His friends noticed the change. He stopped the after-work drinking, no longer boasted about deals or commissions, and talked about Harper constantly, showing off pictures of his daughter to anyone who would listen. The things that once seemed important, networking events, first-class flights, career advancement, all felt hollow compared to the joy of seeing his daughter giggle or listening to her first babbling sounds. Gradually, in those quiet moments with his child, Ethan began to feel an invisible, warm thread connecting his heart to that tiny being, a primal sense of belonging he had never experienced. That feeling was further solidified as comments from others started pouring in. A neighbor he met in the elevator, after looking at Harper and then at Ethan, smiled and said, "My, you two look exactly alike. That little frown, it's identical." An old friend he ran into at the supermarket also exclaimed, "My God, no introduction needed, we know whose child this is. Look at those eyes, just like yours when you were little." Eva Morgan, one afternoon while babysitting Harper, looked at Ethan holding the sleeping baby and muttered, "Every time I look at her, I see you in there." It's hard to believe. One evening, as the two were having coffee, Jaden, his best friend, asked in a low voice, "Hey, have you ever thought about a DNA test? Just a few strands of hair, and you could be 100% sure." "I could help." Ethan slowly put his coffee cup down. He looked at Jaden, his gaze gentle yet firm as steel. A slight smile formed on his lips. "No need, my friend. I spent the first half year of her life doubting her. I will spend the rest of my life believing in her without needing a piece of paper to prove it." He looked toward the sleeping Harper, his voice full of emotion. "I know for certain. She is my daughter." Lena observed all this from a cautious distance. She never made things easy for Ethan, and she never pretended everything was okay. But gradually, over time, she began to believe that his change was real and long-lasting. When Harper Grace turned 1, Ethan organized an intimate birthday party at a local park. He invited Lena's family, his family, and close friends. It was the first time since the divorce that everyone had gathered in one place. Ethan stood up to offer a toast, and in front of everyone, he publicly confessed the truth about what had happened. He recounted that he had walked away when Lena was pregnant, that he had asked her to terminate the pregnancy, and that he had divorced her simply because he was too cowardly to become a father. He said these things not to humiliate himself, but because he wanted Harper to grow up knowing that people can change, that mistakes can be admitted, and that redemption is possible if you are willing to work hard. He thanked Lena for being the strongest woman he had ever known, for carrying Harper to term alone, and for giving him the chance to be her father despite everything. Not a single person in the park held back their tears. Lena did not say much in response, but that evening, after everyone had left, she looked at him and said, "I see your change, and I am truly grateful that you are becoming the father Harper needs." Those words, stemming from sincerity rather than easy forgiveness, meant more to Ethan than anything else in the world. Ethan never stopped feeling the weight of the months he had missed, the feeling of the baby's first kick that Lena felt alone, the ultrasounds he wasn't present for, the moment Lena first saw their daughter's face, a moment he didn't share because he had chosen to be absent. Those lost moments haunted him, but they also motivated him. He was determined that from now on, Harper would never doubt whether her father loved her or wanted her in his life. One evening, after putting Harper to sleep, Ethan stood up to leave. Looking at Lena tidying up the baby's toys in the home now filled with laughter, a home he once owned, an intense emotion welled up. Everything, the pickups and drop-offs, the diaper changes, the first babbles had mended his heart and made him truly understand what he had almost lost. "Lena," he spoke up, his deep voice filled with emotion. "These past months, witnessing her grow up, being a part of both your lives, I realize how precious the family I lost was. I was wrong. I know I don't deserve it, but I love you. Can we start over?" Lena put the toy down and turned to look at him. Her gaze was gentle but firm, a strange serenity after everything. "Ethan," she said, her voice soft but every word clear, "I truly appreciate the father you have become to Harper, but I am no longer the girl willing to hope for a promise from you. We have been through an abyss together, and now we stand on two different shores. Our journey as husband and wife is truly over." She smiled, a sad but peaceful smile. "Let us be Harper's best companions. That means 1,000 times more." Lena's refusal did not hurt Ethan like a knife, but like a chilling rain soaking him to the bone. He suddenly understood that some cracks, even if mended by a child's love, leave scars that remain forever, reminders of an unrecoverable past. He accepted his role with a new sense of peace. He showed up for every possible moment, becoming a reliable father. Lena never returned to him emotionally. Their relationship was purely a cooperative effort to raise Harper. When Lena started dating James, a kind elementary school teacher who loved Harper like his own child, Ethan struggled to accept it. But he realized Lena deserved happiness, and his role now was Harper's father, not her husband. 6 months later, at Lena and James's wedding, a 6-year-old Harper innocently took her mother's hand and placed it in James's. "I give mommy to daddy." The moment was one of stunned silence. For Ethan, standing at the back of the church, it was the final, deepest cut. He looked at Lena, harboring a faint hope, but she simply smiled, kissed Harper's cheek, and took James's hand. That silent action was the most painful confirmation. Ethan quietly left, understanding that he had lost that position forever. As Harper grew up, Ethan ensured she knew she was loved by both her mother and father. He never spoke badly about Lena. When Harper was old enough, he told her the truth that when she was in her mother's womb, her dad had been very afraid and made a mistake. "You are the one who taught me to be a better man," he often whispered, "and I will be thankful for your existence for the rest of my life." Harper received the story with a pure heart, without any judgment. 3 years later, Ethan married again, but every time he thought about having another child, an intense fear surged within him. The image of Lena alone at the ultrasounds, the happy face of Harper calling James dad, all served as a warning. He realized he no longer had the courage to be a father again. The guilt over Harper had poisoned the hope. He had dedicated his entire fatherly love to his daughter, and in that self-imposed penance, he found a semblance of peace, watching Harper happily from afar. Ethan whispered in the Seattle rain, "I spent 6 months trying to prove she cheated, only to dedicate the rest of my life to proving I was worthy of the daughter I almost erased." He opened the Tom Ford briefcase for the last time, taking out the DNA test paper that had once been secretly requested. The white paper was torn into pieces, dissolving in the rain, carrying all the doubts and fears of the past away forever. A few weeks later, Ethan officially resigned from his position as VP of Marketing. During a public live stream, he looked directly into the camera. "I spent my entire career building trust for brands, but I lost trust in my own home. I was wrong." When he stepped out of the studio, a torrential Seattle rain was waiting. It was exactly like the rain on the fateful night he drove Lena away, and also like the rain he cried in his car after the disastrous signing. This time, Ethan didn't run. He walked straight into the cold downpour, facing the consequences of his actions, letting the rain wash over him as if to cleanse every mistake. As he stood there, a figure approached. Lena quietly walked over, raising an umbrella to shield him. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm, "my forgiveness is no longer important. I have moved past that pain. But there is one person whose forgiveness truly matters." Ethan was silent, his eyes questioning. "It's Harper," Lena said. "She is the one who had to grow up without a father during the most crucial first months of her life. I will only truly consider things resolved when Harper herself, through the understanding of a mature heart, willingly forgives you." Ethan looked up, his eyes stunned. Lena looked directly at him, her eyes both gentle and resolute. "Not because you deserve it," she said, "but because Harper needs a father who is no longer obsessed with the past." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. The 1,000-pound burden of the past months seemed to be washed away. But right in that moment, Lena's voice rang out firmly. "This is the final warning. If you ever hurt her again, I will take her somewhere you will never find her." "This time, I mean it," Ethan nodded, without a single word of justification. "There are mistakes that cause us to lose everything, only to find the one thing that is truly worthwhile." He once drove his pregnant wife out into the pouring rain, uttering cruel words, "I won't raise another man's kid," only for that very statement to become a curse, forcing him to his knees before 50,000 people. Realizing that he himself was the other man, but behind that noisy downfall was the silent journey of a mother stepping through loneliness alone, overcoming critical complications alone, and welcoming our little girl alone with a heart large enough to offer one last chance. All because the tiny daughter deserved a father. If your heart has ever ached from wrongful suspicion, or if you simply believe that every fetus deserves to be born and loved unconditionally, please subscribe now. Every subscription not only supports the channel but is also a step in joining us to spread the power of forgiveness, stories of redemption, and the right to life of every living soul. You will never be alone in the fight for truth and the protection of what is good. Finally, in your opinion, along that fragile boundary, should we choose forgiveness or persistently demand justice until the very end?